Is work-life balance a myth? And is your motivation away from problems or towards opportunities? Hey, I'm Scott Peckford. This is the I Love Mortgage Brokering podcast. I'm doing the show. I have Greg Williamson. He's the Chief Revenue Officer for Lendesk. And Greg was my very first mortgage coach that I ever hired way back in the day. And I always love chatting with Greg, and we just have these great discussions. I jokingly called this Zen in the Art of Mortgage Broker Maintenance because it's somewhat philosophical. We talk about work-life balance. We talk about motivation, the different types of motivation, like fuel that you can run on. We talk about some technology stuff that he's seeing and just the state of the industry. It's a really fun conversation. Hopefully you find it as interesting as I did. Before I jump into that, I want to give a shout out to our title sponsor, Finmo. Finmo is a Canadian mortgage application, document collection, submission platform designed specifically for Canadian borrowers. It's very easy for borrowers to use. It's got cool features like smart docs. As the person's filling out the app, it knows what docs they need. It's got smart submission notes. It pulls key data from the app to put in the app the submission notes so that the lender can give you an answer quicker. And it's connected to Lender Spotlight, which is the best tool for searching rates and guidelines. Check them out at lendesk.com/Finmo. Check out this conversation with Greg. Hey, Greg, welcome back to the show.
Scott, I'm so glad I'm here. It's going to be exciting. I mean, it's my favorite time when I get to chat with you. It's been a long time, and we go back a long way. So
we do. Really we were riffing before we turned on the recorder, and we're like, we just got to start recording because you and I would go. And just so you don't know, Greg was my very first mortgage coach I ever had back in the day. You were like, most well decorated awards. Even though what do you think about awards? But you definitely had numbers, and I went to your office and you trained us for a couple of days and took us out for dinner, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then built up a good business, and then built up Finmo and sold that, and obviously work over at Finmo now as Chief of Revenue, right? Is that your title?
Chief Revenue Officer, yeah.
Chief Revenue Officer. And so, yeah, but I always love talking. So I think we got a couple of different topics, and one of the things you still coach mortgage brokers, which is cool. So let's jump into some stuff about that. So talk to me about work-life balance and what you're seeing, and how you with the people that you're talking to and coaching.
Yeah, work-life balance is coming to the forefront again. I sense that people are in this, like you and I chatted earlier about this chaos or uncertainty, and like we've come through some challenging years. It seems like we're starting to come out of that. So that's interesting and I think great. But it also is for people sometimes geographically, whatever, like there's change and so people start to get into this, I think, feeling of anxiety or concern or worry. And then it sort of goes into, I'll pour myself into my business, which may mean that I then stop thinking about my life and whatever. And so I often hear people say to me things like, how do I master work-life balance? And the way I view it is, if I think of it in that frame, like work-life balance, that would suggest I have two lives, but I only have one life. Right. And so there isn't this thing where I'm trying to find the balance. I think it's just like, it's a thing where I look at my whole life, and there's periods of time where maybe I got to focus a little bit more attention in one area of my life. That's probably true. But it doesn't mean that I should, at the expense of then eliminating any attention to all the other areas of my life. And I think that's a problem that people have.
Right. One of the things I always think about when it comes to work-life balance is that, if somebody standing on one foot can be in balance, doesn't mean it's the optimum way to stand. And I think about...
I like that.
I think about balance. Like, I agree with you. I don't know who said this. Maybe it was Alex or Mosey, but it's just life. There's not work-life balance. It's like, it's life. And one of the things that I'm curious I'll share something that works for me, but I'd like to hear what works for you and or people that you've coached, is I will frequently do what I call the ideal work week. I'll look at my whole week and I'll plan out in blocks of kind of, okay, like Wednesdays are my creative day, and I have, multiplying meetings on other days, and I have these sort of themes, and then I fill in my other personal stuff, like the training or stuff that I want to do. And whenever I want to make a big change, I always go, before I do anything, I go back to that ideal work week and I re-engineer the entire week, because I'm not engineering a day. I'm trying to engineer a week. And that is like, 7 days. It's weekends too. So like, what am I doing on Saturday? Do I have what does an optimum Saturday look like? It doesn't always happen, but I find doing that helps me keep the important things in my calendar and they don't get squished out. What are your thoughts, or what do you do on that?
Yeah, I think that's obviously really great. I think that most people don't go out that far, I think, and I think that's probably good. Like, some certain things that are non-negotiable. This goes back to the areas of my life. Maybe I'm going to play golf. Like, I love golf. So I'm playing golf Wednesday afternoon. I don't care what happens. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
For example, I think that's probably great. What I do is I've created like structured morning and evening routines. And I know that there are periods of sometimes in my life where I just sort of stray away from those things, and I'm aware that I'm doing them, but I always will come back. I don't pressure myself to say, oh, you didn't meditate in the last few days. Oh, that's fine. I didn't meditate. Okay. But I do know that when things are working the most optimally, I sort of bookend. I think I'm going to bookend my day. And my morning routine starts the night before. Like, I know that if I do the right things to kind of wind down and get into a good quality sleep, it's a key number one hack, then my morning routine is well set up. And I have a really structured routine that for 2 or 3 hours before I actually even get into my day, I've accomplished a lot of things that are really around setting me up for the most, an empowering day. And so the more that I stay within that structure, and I know some people say, well, that seems really rigid. Yeah, I guess it could be considered that, but I just know that it works.
Right. Well, the thing is, and I actually have a morning and an evening routine, or like a wind down routine that I use as well. Actually, I typically I do it all before I get up before 6, and then before 5, and then I'm at my desk working at 6 usually in the morning, because I got team on the out east, and it's just but between 6 and 7:30 or 8, I don't talk to anybody, just work, and I get a lot done in that 2 hours, and then I start doing meetings and stuff. But I totally agree with you on the the evening. But here's the thing: even somebody who says they don't have a routine, if I follow them around for a week, they'd be like, "Oh, that looks an awful lot like a routine."
Yeah.
It's an unconscious routine. The difference is that you have consciously said, "Hey, I optimize. If I do these activities in the morning and the evening, I'm optimized." Otherwise, you will have a routine. Even the person who's not living their best life, they still have a routine. They just haven't chosen it. It's just kind of happened over time.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think some of those times, like, depending on where I might be in my current state, like, sometimes without really realizing it, these routines that you say or habits that aren't really actually supporting me, but I'm just stuck in them.
Mm-hmm.
So people, I say to people stuff like, well, what if you had to read, meditate, do some yoga? Oh, I don't got no time for that. It's like, well, it's like my favorite 2 statements when I'm coaching is like, I don't got time for that, or I can't afford that. Both of those statements are, when reframed, is what would I need to do in order to have the time for that? Or what would I need to do in order to have the money to be able to invest in the thing that I say I need in order to get what I say I want?
Right.
Like, so it's a frame, right? So things like, well, if you spend 2 hours doom scrolling on Instagram or you're watching Netflix for 3 hours, well, there's some time there that could be reallocated to some things that actually might be a place where it could make you feel more empowered.
I'm curious, if you don't mind sharing, what is your bedtime or your like wind down routine? Because I agree with you. The morning routine starts the night before, because if I don't do it properly at night, the morning is usually I'm started off on the wrong foot.
Yeah. I mean, for me, quite a long time ago, I just decided I'm just not the TV guy. So, my wife loves to do that. Okay, great. She does that, but I rarely do. And so I got lots of time once I'm ready to, and my kids tease me and I'm an early to bed guy because I'm also an early riser. And so I generally will do a little bit of yin yoga or something to just kind of stretch and just kind of get present and kind of feel like, how's my day been? Pardon me. And then I read.
And, what kind of stuff do you read before bed?
It varies, but my sort of go-tos are, I've got a series of, I forget now, Vince Flynn. So I've been reading him for years, and he's written like 28 books, and it's like kind of like the Jack Reacher style. So I like the CIA kind of terrorism stuff. And so I'll sometimes read one of those books, and then sometimes an autobiography of somebody interesting and cool. I do a lot of that.
Yeah.
And then occasionally it'll be, something in the spiritual realm or some kind of self-help or just something.
So if in a typical night, will you start going to bed at 9:00, or what time are you usually like winding down?
I have summer hours.
I'm like that.
Yeah, I have summer hours and I have winter hours. Yeah. And so Yeah. So winter hours, which is winter is coming, then I'm usually in bed by the time, it's starting to get dark out. So I'm in bed pretty early. And then, pardon me, I got a tickle. And then it's just usually reading for an hour or so, maybe a half hour to an hour, and then lights out and I'm asleep.
Right. Yeah. I'm like that too. What I do, I'll read nonfiction that does not, if I read business books, it's the worst thing for me to read before bed because it just fires me up too much. And then my brain is lit up and how can I apply this? So instead I read stuff that is not. And what I've been doing lately is I put on spa music. So I put on spa music that I listen to that's very calming, and I read, and I can't last very long reading. It's just like it's starting to like relax me, and then I'm like, and then the other hack that I recently discovered, I did some reading on sleep and having a sleep mask, because any light that hits your eyelids will start to wake you up. And so I love my sleep mask. I mean, if somebody I wouldn't even know they're in my room. Because that thing is great.
Sleep's the biggest hack of all. Like, everything comes out of that. So, I mean, I'm pretty grateful. I'm a great sleeper, and it just, no problem.
Yeah. I think sleep is the closest thing to performance enhancing drug you can get. Like, if you have good sleep, you will function so much better. Okay. So let's talk about motivation. So we talked about work-life balance, and we were touching on this, and there's lots of different ways you can motivate yourself. There's towards motivation. So you have this goal that draws you in. There's away from. And I was saying to you, I'm more of an away from motivation person. Like I need to
Goggins style.
Yeah, it's like, man, I gotta have something. Pressure is good for me. The more pressure, the better I work. The less pressure, I tend to. So, how about you? What works best for you, or how have you been wired?
I think there was a period of time where I was like you, and I think I got motivated for maybe a different reason. Upon reflection, thinking about that period of my life where I would enjoy chaos or enjoy problems, because then I could put my cape on and then go and save the day.
Right.
And that fed this sense of unworthiness. And so it was good.
You're looking into my soul, brother, right now.
Yeah. I mean, it was good.
That's probably me too. That's exactly what I'm doing.
It's good because it created drive, it created ambition, it created energy, and I created a lot of great things. Mm-hmm. But it was, I discovered later that I felt like it was maybe unhealthy for me.
Yeah.
Because I was doing it for this reason of trying to get to this place of a feeling of self-love and worthiness by going around and saving the day for everybody. And so I now sort of feel like what's better for me is to, instead of like creating this scenario where I awfulize the future, like, I got to make sure I don't do that. I actually feel like it's better for me where I can kind of create the future. I don't like staying in the future very much because it takes me out of this moment. But if I am going to do it, I want to paint a rosy picture of what I'm trying to get towards without really being specific. Like, I got to have a house, or I got to, buy a house down south, or blah, blah, blah. But it's just like, hey, I want freedom. I want peace. I want my life to look like this. Mm-hmm. And then take those feelings, those freedom and peace and excitement, and bring them to this moment. And then just like, okay, step forward with that. And that seems to be working better for me now than it was when I was like in the chaotic mode of, working towards, or as you said, working away from this awfulized idea of what could happen if I don't do the right things.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's healthier to be, I feel like it's different types of fuel. So one fuel, I think like what you're talking about, the towards motivation of the aspirational, what you're aiming at, it's a cleaner fuel. I don't think it causes as many, because the away from motivation and so I was in a coaching program once, and one of the first things they had us do was they had us write down like the heaven and the hell. So what's the ideal outcome look like? So if everything that you plan works, and then what's the worst possible thing that if none of it works and it all blows up and burns to the ground, and they want to make you feel the tension between those two things. And that
I think is helpful.
Yeah. And so I've done that, but I've found for me, at least, I don't know if I need to remind myself that the great outcome is easy. And it's like, okay, that's cool. But I need to remind myself of the possible negative outcome sometimes to get the best motivation. It's kind of like I'm burning a fuel I know is not as clean, but I'm like, it actually does make me move more productively.
I think about that in a slightly different way. It's a Stoic principle, like what you're talking about. So it's like, I mean, the Stoics would say something like, can I bear it? So it's painting this, like, I got an idea. I got to do something. And then if I paint the picture of, if this happened, like the less ideal outcome happened, could I bear it? Like, would I be okay? Like, will I survive? And if that's true, it eliminates the worry and concern now of me actually hitting that failure.
Right.
And so that actually is cleaner.
Well, I do believe that. I have in the past, I've gone through like situations that have come up, and I would write out the worst possible outcome and then ask myself, if this happened, can I live with it? And I was
that's the Stoic way. Yeah,
and I was like, I can't live with it. But the thing is, reminding myself, it still doesn't mean it's not my optimum. I don't want it to happen. So it's like, okay, well, I still believe in agency. I hate blame. One of the things that drives me crazy is blame. It's like, oh, this is someone else's fault. It's the market. It's that. It's like blame. Yeah. You literally, I was thinking the other day, blame is a blindness to change that you can actually, things you can control. And so as soon as you start blaming, you are giving up all your power. You are blind to any opportunity to change. And the most successful entrepreneurs and people that I've studied, they have very little blame in them. They just go, okay, it happened. What are we going to do? And that's it.
Yeah, it's a victim mindset. I agree with you 100% there. But it's the small tweak there is that I think some people struggle with creating this potential really bad outcome, but then actually knowingly or unknowingly cling to that. And it's like you're driving a motorcycle, like dirt bike or whatever you do. You know, you're trained that wherever your eyes go is where you're going to go. If you look at the tree, you're going to hit the tree. Yeah. And so it's the same thing. If you're constantly thinking about this failure, you're going to hit it.
Okay, that's a good point. So I would say that when I use that, I don't use it I just use it as it's like a jolt in the arm, but it's not a daily. I'm generally positive and have overabundance of confidence and think that I can do anything, even if it's not true. Right.
Exactly. That's the other thing about the future. It's like people get into this. Here's I think a challenge that many people suffer with in different areas of their life is I'm in this moment and I'm experiencing some emotions that are negative for whatever reason. Something's bubbled up, something got triggered me. And then the story machine just starts to ramp up. And now all of a sudden I'm awfulizing the future based on how I'm feeling right now. And then I go into the future and live that and create more emotion around that: fear, anxiety, concern, anger, resentment, whatever it is that I'm currently feeling. And then that actually feeds the story machine to go. And here I am now in this loop.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good reminder. I think because I naturally don't do that I don't actually, but if you did focus just on negative, you would just create that in your life. Like, I don't live in a fear-based, like, I got a quote behind me that says, this is somebody sent me this because it says, we do this not because it's easy, but because we thought it would be easy and we started. And that's me. It's like, I thought, how hard, start a brokerage. How hard can it be? It turns out to be way freaking harder than I expected. But
the key was that you knew. This is the key between the people who I think who are rooted in this moment with confidence and presence and ambition and real and belief in oneself. What's different there is that you're like, okay, I know I want to go here, and I know I want to create this, but I also know that it probably isn't going to, the path to get there is not going to be the way I thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. But I also know that I have the skills, I have the proven track record, and I know that when obstacles appear, I will get through it. Right. And as soon as I know that to be true, it doesn't matter then what obstacles show up. But it comes from in this moment, it comes from a place of confidence and from basically self-love and all of those other things. Whereas when I come from a fear-based mindset in this moment, I will not create that outcome. I will definitely go into, when the obstacles appear, it'll just get more and more awfulized and I'll spin out of control.
I have this kind of idea or this belief that obstacles are just the building blocks for what you need to get. And there's so many times that I love biographies. We talked about this. I love and there's so many times that the big problem was where the opportunity came. Like, it was this problem that everybody thought was insurmountable that created this whole new it forced change and forced creativity. And so
Yeah, absolutely.
I think of it as like, I'm like, great, there's some problem. This is probably where's the opportunity in this thing? And so I get excited by it instead of discouraged in most cases.
Marcus Aurelius, one of the classic Stoics, said the obstacle is the way. Ryan Holiday wrote a book about it. It's a fantastic book, but it's exactly that. Like nothing ever good, no growth comes out of complacency and same and comfort zone. Growth only comes out of obstacles and overcoming obstacles.
Right. Okay. So we talked about work-life balance, motivation. I feel like it's like Zen. It's like this is Zen and the art of mortgage broker maintenance. This is this art.
Hey, that's the title of our book that we're going to write together.
Yeah, we'll write a book together. So let's talk about like technology and state of the industry. I mean, you're very enmeshed in that world. Tell me about like kind of what you see. Where's the opportunity, and then where do you see is like if people don't adapt, where do you see them having challenges or problems?
I think that right now the technology is in this kind of like holding pattern. Like, when we had this conversation maybe a year or more so ago, people were still in the battle of the platforms, but that's kind of subsided. It's kind of got to a place where everybody's picked their path and everybody's picked the platform that they want to work on. Great. Okay. We're out of that, having to, do that battle. Now it's like, well, what's next? AI is on the horizon. What's that going to do? And there's lots of interesting stuff that's happening, but it's still in even its own state of flux, if you will. Like people are just kind of like, look, I know this is here, but I don't know what I'm supposed to do next. And so that's interesting to me. And I also think that it's been a classic story since you and I have started in this business about, well, what CRM am I supposed to use? Or what am I supposed to do here?
Goodness.
And I really think that that's overdone and overthinking. Like just do the thing that you're going to do. But I know you and I both are pretty good fans of a new technology that's kind of hit the street that I think has a lot of promise for everybody. And that's Ownwell. I know that, we could certainly talk a little bit more about that, but I'm really excited about what that could do because it's not just an idea. CRM, what does the CRM actually even mean? Some people think of it as like, what's the thing that operating system so I can find out the reporting, the analytics in my business? Okay, great. Yeah, that's good. Sometimes it's like, well, it's the, my constant contact with my past customers. Okay, that's good too. But it's like, just what's the simple thing that's going to get the biggest results? And that's what I really love about Ownwell. It's simple. It does one thing, but it does it really well. And I think that's the key. It's like simplify your business, simplify your life, and just focus in on the one thing that's actually going to move the needle. And today, this idea as a mortgage professional that I do a better job of giving value to my past customers.
Right.
Like real value, tangible value.
Yeah, something that they actually want from you.
Yeah, it's jumping the shark about this. Just get in touch with them.
I know what Ownwell is and you do. Maybe can you describe what it is so that anybody listening, what are they talking about, this Ownwell thing? Yeah,
so Ownwell's premise, it was built on an idea that was really successful in the US called HomeBot. And HomeBot sold for like $100 million. Like they did a 4 or 5 year journey and just exploded. So that's the other thing that's kind of cool. It's like, hey, it's already this idea. The execution is always the key, but the idea, it's proven. It works.
It's a 9 out of 10 of idea, but like most things, the execution it's the risk is in the execution and how
totally. And every time there's a new technology that comes out, you're like, well, who's behind it? Like, how do I know that it's going to? And in this particular case, Dan McDonald, who's founder of Ownwell and built it, he was my colleague at Lendesk. I know the guy. I know what he can do, and I believe in him. I actually think he's going to be able to execute on it. And so the idea is really just this constant contact with your past customers, but from a place of adding real value. So the three things that Ownwell, I think, does really well is that it takes my database on a regular basis as, two things that'll, Jeff Bezos always said, I focus on the things that'll never change. Well, here's what will never change as it relates to this topic is that the markets will change and people's lives will change. And so as that's happening, are you there when that happens? And so if I'm regularly emailing good quality information to my borrower when they are thinking about a life change, or a life change been set upon them, a divorce, or buying a second property, or whatever it might be. Are you there? And are you there as a trusted advisor? Like, yeah, sure, you can be there in the sense that I sent them happy birthday cards, or I sent them, don't forget to change the batteries in your smoke detector emails. Like, okay, sure, you're there, but are you really there? Like, are you a trusted advisor? And so if I'm sending them out something that gives them a regular update on the value of their biggest asset, the thing that they're most interested in, that's being there with value.
Right.
And then if I'm also sending them something that says, here's what your current rate is, here's what some of the rates are in the opportunity in the marketplace, and you could save $6,000 if we did something today. That's valuable. Mm-hmm. And so this, and the other thing I like is the continuity of it. Like it's there all the time. So your customers will get to a point where they're actually waiting for that email that gives me the update on what's new, like what's happened since last month in terms of my home value, the opportunity that might exist. And then I get into this regular thing where I've done it 6, 7, 8 months in a row. And then my borrower has a life moment that's going to change things. Who do they call first? The person that they developed a trust with, the person who's adding value in their life. That's what I love about it.
Right.
Instead of just, sure, it's one thing to go ahead and send a bunch of emails out to them. Okay, great. That's good. That's better than nothing. But this is, again, better than that, I think.
Right. It's natural evolution of value. The expectation of value has gone up over time. You just think about what Amazon has done for customer service. We expect to collect. Why is it not here? 2 days have gone by. And so I think in general, it's like the hedonic treadmill for sort of value. And it's like our expectations just keeps going up and up and up. And so now, what I love about OML, I think of it like people pay attention to their stocks, the value of their stocks. This is a way to stay on top of the value of your home, as well as what your options are on an ongoing basis. And I think one of the reasons they sold it for so much money in the US, and I think they're doing $40 million a month and $40 million a year in revenue, is that the open rate and the engagement rate on this is extremely high, because it's about me. Like, it's kind of like I always say, like, why would people do these? You do a quiz. Well, who's your spirit animal? Or who's they want to know about themselves. And this is their house, their home equity. They care about it. And I've got some friends that use it. I got a friend who sends 28,000 of them a month in the US. And the open rate is ridiculously high because but it's the tool, but it's also how they frame the conversation with the client about why they need to pay attention to it. Because it's one thing to be like, hey, this is great, but if customers don't understand it, and there's an little education piece in there, but this has already been done. There's none of this. The great part is that this has already been worked out in the US, and it's working really well.
Well, that's actually why I genuinely believe if I was a mortgage professional that's been around for several years and I got 1,000 clients or whatever, I got a nice base of clients, 2,000 clients, whatever. I believe that own well, properly executed in my business could be the only thing I need to do.
Yeah.
Honestly, because it's built. The other thing that he did really well that I know Dan's going to do here is that it's the referability of who I become now. So I envision a scenario where my borrowers are at a barbecue at the neighbors with 10 people and somebody says, I'm buying a house. And I envision that customer saying, oh my God, you got to go see Greg. Let me show you and I can actually see them pulling up an email and saying, look at the kind of stuff this guy sends me. He's really good. You should go see him. So the referability goes up, I think, a lot. And the second thing is, if I was newer in the business, then this is what HomeBot did really well. It's my favorite thing actually about it. And I know that Dan's going to do this, is the ability for me to build a database by adopting other people's databases. So I go to my 5 top realtors and I show them the program because they're struggling in the same way of being able to provide good value to their customers. And as a realtor, what would be the most important thing I'd want to give value to my borrowers is the information about the asset I sold them.
Right.
And so they go to the 5 realtors who all got 500 clients. I just made that up. Now I got 2,500 clients that I've adopted and I'm sending out my own well. And now I've moved my database from 200 people to 2,700 people. And then, 6 months later, that goes in because I send out links everywhere and I ask people to join my program. I'll adopt your mortgage. And next thing you know, within 6 months to 12 months, I got 5,000 people in there and I'm sending out that message all the time, you can't tell me I'm not going to generate 5 to 10 deals a month out of that. Not to mention the fact that the realtors that I've adopted their program, they're going to send me their now clients because we've got a different relationship now. So I genuinely believe it could be something that's the only thing I need to do.
Yeah, like my buddy who in Texas who uses it, he's got 4,000 past clients. He's got 24,000 adopted homeowners in his database.
I can imagine how many. I mean, you already probably know.
I already know his numbers, and here's the crazy part: he's actually grown. Even when when everything in the U.S. went from purchase to like everything, rates went up, just died. His business has grown every year, even in these markets where most people were,
it's
dropping.
It's 40%. The next thing. But here's the other thing that's interesting about it. It's not quote unquote cheap, like, because to get the information to provide that value, you got to pay for it. Like the providers that are providing the data on what the home value is doing and the mortgage and all that is, you got to pay for that. Mm-hmm. So next thing you know, like a mortgage, here's the one thing that I think is classic in the mortgage business. It's classic. It's like, oh my God, my database of 1,000 clients is going to cost me $500 a month. I just made that number up, but I think it's relatively close.
Yeah.
$500 a month. Are you crazy? Are you kidding me? I can get, XYZ CRM for $69 a month. You're like, yeah, so, and it's classic. It boggles my mind, and it has for years. Mortgage professionals in general, certainly there's exceptions, but in general are on this, like, they have no problem paying too much to their brokerage for little to no value in a lot of cases, or their network, tens of thousands of dollars. But then when they actually have to think about the investment they got to make into their own business, like, oh, that's way too much money. I can't afford that.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to me. It's like, do the math. Like, okay, it's going to cost you $6,000 a year to send out 2,000 emails or 1,000 emails a month. You don't think you can get back, 10x on that investment? Come on.
If it's done properly, you would. Yes. It's all about, but it's how you structure it, right? Yeah, I agree with you. I think that there's certainly there's an element of people that have that mindset. And I see people that have been in the business for years, and they literally have, they're doing the same volume pretty much they were doing for the last decade. And they really don't have 10 years experience. They got 1 year that they've repeated 10 times. And they have not really, and their only growth is the fact that the mortgage size has increased. That's it.
Yeah.
And
it's a good point.
Otherwise they would have gone backwards. If the mortgage size hadn't increased, they would have actually been like, oh shoot, but they don't. It's sort of like they don't even realize that they're losing, because
what I say to mortgage professionals who feel stuck in this area, like I'm nervous to make an investment in my business, I always say, well, do me a favor, you've got to have 5 friends or past clients or associates that are business owners. Like they own a business, entrepreneurs. Go ask them how much they spend or how much they've had to invest to grow that, whatever business. I don't care what business it is. It could be a hair salon. It could be a dog grooming business.
Oh, it's way more money than a mortgage business.
Here you are as a mortgage professional thinking that, $1,000, $12,000 a year and something that grows my business is astronomical and I can't do it. It's like this. It's not rooted in reality. I need to make investments and make calculated investments and execute on those investments, but I got to make them first. Mm-hmm. And people struggle in that area. And I think it's a part that's going to hurt, because in the future, I think we're more and more in that place where, as a mortgage professional, it's going to be 3 buckets. I'm either the person who, my value proposition, I provide value, and therefore I get paid top dollar for my, I don't cut commissions. I provide value. I provide really good structured, like demonstratable value, or I provide the lowest rate ever, or I provide convenience, which, by the way, I think is like, just cross that one off, because I don't think that's true anymore. And so,
I would say that the value, I think it's value and value could be defined, I suppose. I don't know if I call it 3 categories or 2, because value could also be like somebody who's solution focused, who's doing like business for self. That's value. But I could create a business. I could create a business. In fact, you and I both know there's great businesses out there that just went out with, we got the lowest rate and we get paid 50, 60 basis points a deal, and we just made a business out of that. Yeah, that's great. They're good quality businesses. That's their bucket. But if I think the mom and pop mortgage professional will struggle in that bucket, because they'll get squashed by the people that are already really good at that,
in that area.
Yeah.
And so if that means
and
the
you
only
have to
thing
do
left
it at
for me,
such a high scale to make money.
And talk about the investment those guys have had to make.
The investment they're making in advertising and staff, and you're like, oh, it's and they're spending a lot more money. So because they understand it's a business. But
as a mortgage broker today, I can no longer just sort of sit and hope that customers will just fall in my lap because I was referred by you and I trusted the person referred by you. I mean, that of course still happens. But if I really want to grow my business, it's more than ever, I think, is demonstrate value and move it, because consumers are getting smarter. Consumers have access to way more information, and consumers have access to way more choice. And so I got to be really clear on what my value proposition is, and then I got to deliver on that.
Yeah, that's really good. Okay, so as we're wrapping this up, is there any last words or last thoughts you have that you want to share, that anything I should have asked you about?
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, it's this conversation about where we headed.
Right.
You know, I alluded to this. I mean, one of my roles at Lendesk, I get to have lots of conversations with big banks and big FIs and like, what's going on? What are they up to? You know, and especially as it relates to AI. And I just recently had a conversation about this. They're all predictably, but falling over themselves to create some kind of an AI thing. But banks have a tendency to over-engineer everything, and they try to go from zero to the solution.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're stumbling over each other and stumbling over themselves in terms of creating. So that's good news. Like they're still a ways away from being able to crack the nut on like this automation and everything. But truthfully, I mean, at Lendesk, one of the things when we are dipping our toe into AI, we built 3 features that are really kind of interesting. They're in market. One is Spotlight Assistant, which is a great tool. But it's the early days of trying to figure out where are we going with this. And I'll tell you in a second what I think, why that's important. But then inside of Finmo, we built a couple of features that are currently in beta and being tested that are really interesting. And we're taking the stance of not trying to go to auto adjudication, the panacea that everybody says they want to get to. We're so far away from that, I think. It's more about how do we empower and reduce friction in the application process, number one. Number two is how do we move the quality of underwriting and the quality of making the deal happen down upstream a bit more.
Right.
So give the tools to the mortgage professional at the front end. So things like the tools that we're creating is these ideas where you could just drop a transcript. You can have a meeting with your customer on Zoom, and you do your discovery call and you're asking a bunch of questions, and you take the transcript and you just drop it into Finmo, and boom, it will fill out the mortgage application for the things that are in that transcript.
Right.
So now you've taken half of that job away, and then drop the MLS listing into it, and it'll fill in all the property details, and now you've got 3/4 of the application done. And then the borrower just like, so that's efficiency, sure, but it's also the first step into where are we going to get to, where a point where the borrower actually doesn't have to do much to actually get the application done and get into the system. And then also what we think about is how are we going to get from what the borrower said and what the documents say? You and I both know that's a huge friction point,
totally.
right? Like,
yeah.
And so like now the AI will be able to say, there's a discrepancy here, focus on this and fix that.
Highlight those things.
So efficiency, but more importantly, moving some of those important jobs downstream so that brokers or mortgage originators or whatever can then submit a clean file that has a higher likelihood of getting approved. That's the kind of things we're thinking about.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. So where can people find you online, Greg, if they're looking for you?
Yeah, you won't find me very much online, but you can find me at Lendesk. But yeah, I mean, I'm findable, I guess.
If you need to, if you know, basically.
Yeah, I don't have much of a social media presence, so you're not gonna. If you send me a message on there, it might not ever get responded to, so don't do that. But anyways, I'm happy to carry
chat
on any types of conversations that need to happen.
Thanks for coming to chat with me. I always love our conversations. Zen in the art of mortgage business maintenance or something. And it's good. Always good to chat, brother.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks again for listening. And hopefully you found that informative and enlightening. I know I always love chatting with Greg, and just even not everything that we see things eye to eye, but it's always great to have those discussions and have somebody smart that I can bounce things off of. And I just really enjoy Greg, appreciate him. And thanks for listening. And as I always say, there's no problem in your mortgage business that someone else hasn't already solved. Your problem is who's already solved it and how do I get their answer? Hopefully, this podcast is one of the ways that you can do that. Thanks again for listening, and I will see you on the next episode.